Two things. First of all, when Bush put Ashcroft in as a nomination for the Justice Department, he made it clear the Ku Klux Klan was riding again. That clear. Now maybe Bush didn't know what he was doing, but somebody in the Bush team did, and a lot of them had the voice to say something about it. Ashcroft was an insult to the Congress. If the Democrats in the Congress capitulate to the Ashcroft nomination, the Congress is finished. This is pretty much like the same thing that Germany did in February 28th, 1933, when the famous Notverordnung was established. This, remember, after the Reichstag burning, the Reichstag fire, that Goering, who commanded at that time Prussia, he was the minister president of Prussia at the time, set into motion an operation. As part of this, operating under the rules of Carl Schmitt, a famous pro-Nazi jurist of Germany, they passed this act called the Notverordnung, the Emergency Act, which gave the state the power, according to Schmitt's doctrine, to designate which part of its own population were enemies and to imprison them freely and to eliminate them. This was a dictatorship. Now remember that Hitler had come into power at January 30th of that same year, less than 2 months earlier. He'd come in as a minority party which had been discredited in the previous election. He was put in by bankers, including the father of President George Bush, the former president, Prescott Bush. Prescott Bush, as agent for Harriman in New York, worked with the British banks to put Adolf Hitler into power in January of 1933. At that time, Hitler was discredited and about to be bombed out. He was stuck into power because that was the last chance to get him in power. Everyone said, no, Hitler's not going to make it because the majority of the population is against him. Then on February 28th, 1933, the Notverordnung Act was passed on the pretext of the Reichstag's fire. And this established a dictatorship which Germany did not get rid of until 1945. Now, I'm not suggesting that the case of Ashcroft is comparable to the Reichstag's fire. But it is a provocation, a deliberate provocation. And if the Democratic Party and decent Republicans do not combine to throw that nomination back in the face of the nominator, this Congress isn't worth anything. That is because it will have surrendered its dignity. If you give those kinds of powers of a Justice Department to that Ashcroft and what he represents under that flag, you don't have any justice left in the United States. And any Republican senator who disagrees with me shouldn't be a senator. He doesn't represent the Democratic Party. So it's going to be up to the people to make sure. Now, what I would say is this. Members of the House of Representatives do have some powers. They may not be the formal powers of the Judiciary Committee, but they have some powers. And if the Congress makes it clear and gets some of the senators, the Democratic senators, to also to make it clear that we're not going to put up with this Ashcroft provocation, we can stop it. But little protest movements is not going to do it. You're going to have to jam the works up on this one. You're going to have to make it impossible for Bush to get his nomination through, as long as that Ashcroft nomination is not eliminated. He'll pull him back. You get the determination to make him pull it back, he'll pull it back. You've got the strength, unless the Democrats want to sell out totally. So I think we need a resolution in the Congress, the House of Representatives. And you've got the Congress has some powers in this matter. Remember, the Congress has not yet certified the President-elect. I think the question of certifying the President-elect is also a question. This Ashcroft question should be thrown on the table on that question of certifying President-elect Bush, so-called, as president-elect. It's an act that has to be done by the Congress. I would pull every string in the book that's serious as a legislative string to make sure that Ashcroft is not made the Attorney General. And I think that members of the Congress, members of the Democratic Party, should act on that point as if their life might depend upon it, because the lives of many of them might just depend upon that. You don't know. We're going to a period in which either we do the kinds of things I indicated in summary to you today, or else what you're going to have is not a government. You're going to have something like a Nazi regime. Maybe not initially at the surface. What you're going to have is a government which cannot pass legislation, of meaningful legislation. How does a government which cannot pass meaningful legislation under conditions of crisis govern? They govern in every case in known history by what's known as crisis management. In other words, just like the Reichstagsfire in Germany, how did that happen? Well, a Dutchman who was a known lunatic was used to set fires as a provocateur. And he went around Germany setting fires. And one night, with no security available for the Reichstag, he went into the Reichstag building and set the joint on fire. And Hitler came out and said, well, let's hope the communists did it. And Goering moved, and the Schmidt apparatus moved, that is of Carl Schmitt, the jurist. And they passed the Notverordnung. And on the basis of a provocation, that is crisis management, they rammed through the Notverordnung, which established Hitler as dictator of Germany. What you're going to get with a frustrated Bush administration, if it's determined to prevent itself from being opposed, its will, you're going to get crisis management, where members of the special warfare types of the secret government, the secret police teams and so forth, will set off provocations which will be used to bring about dictatorial powers into motion in the name of crisis management. You will have small wars set off in various parts of the world, which the Bush administration will respond to with crisis management methods of provocation. That's what you'll get. And that's what the problem is. And you have to face that. You've got to control this process now, while you still have the power to do so. Don't be like the dumb Germans, who after Hitler was appointed to the chancellorship in January 1933, sat back and say, no, we're going to defeat him at the next election. There was never a next election. It was just this ja vote for Hitler as dictator. Because the Notverordnung of February 1933 eliminated the political factor. And that's the danger you'll get here. If the Bush administration is determined to hammer its way through on this thing, it's not resisted, and you allow it to do so, you will find it strongly tempted. And you look at remember what George Bush's specialty was, as I remember very well. Remember Iran-Contra, one of the biggest mass murder swindles in modern history, run by the Vice President of the Bush under special powers given to him under special orders with the executive branch. He ran Iran-Contra, the biggest drug-running game in the world. And behind Bush, and I know these guys very well because I've been up against them, most of my problems came from these characters. These guys, pushed to the wall, will come out with knives in the dark. They will not fight you politically. They will get you in the back. They will use their thugs to get you. That's their method. Know it. So don't sit back and be nice guys. When Bush makes some proposal which is sensible, it should be treated as a sensible proposal. But when he tries to shove a provocation down your throat, like Ashcroft, no way, buddy, no way. This thing stops right now.